Spending plummets like a virtual lockdown. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. Let's have a look at this article from Yahoo Finance discussing just, well, spending not where it's expected. It's plummeting. We're virtually in a lockdown. Now, this is important for a few things. Obviously, it's going to have an impact on the retailers, but just think about this. If we start seeing interest rates going up, this is where we'll see the impact. It's the discretionary spending where people will tighten the belt, guys. It might drive more consumers to shop to Aldi to save a few bucks rather than Coles or Woolies, for one example. So let's have a look here, guys. So spending plummets to lockdown lows. Australia is not in lockdown, but we might as well be from a spending perspective. Now, I went out to the pub today, another German club in Brisbane. I met a friend for lunch and a nice beer. I had a Rattler, a lemon light beer, because I was driving. And it was dead, guys. It was Friday. Normally the German club would be flat out, honestly. You'd have trouble getting a table. People would be there for lunch. They'd be finishing work early and going out there for a drink. It's a pretty good venue. The food is good. I mean, I'm biased. I like the German food, but the beer is great. You want a good beer in Australia, in Brisbane, go to the German club, guys, at the Gabba, okay? And although it's getting more expensive, but that's probably more to do with just the cost of bringing it all in. Anyway, back to this. I just noticed there were less people there as well. According to ANZ data, which shows national spending has dramatically fallen back to lockdown levels, with hard-hit Sydney and Melbourne showing figures even further below the national average. The Sydney total spending is at its lowest point of the entire pandemic, according to data for the week to January 5th. Other states have not been spared, with dining spending in Western Australia and Queensland similar to that seen in previous lockdown conditions. WA, Queensland and South Australia total spending figures are at their lowest since their respective lockdown. See, I'm so worried about this, guys. But I feel real sorry for the people in the retail sector. For people have little cafes or restaurants, it'd be a nightmare for them. Lockdown on, lockdown off, food buying, food throwing away. It just, for some people, we were looking at people giving restaurants away pretty much to get out of the leases. ANZ senior economist Adelaide Timbrell said the positive underlying conditions such as consumer confidence and low unemployment meant we can be precise in saying that it's not people trying to save money. It shows the huge impact of Omicron from both the staff shortage side, where people can't go out because of places shutting down, as well as the household side, with people not going out as much and spending as much because they don't want to be out in public and be catching it, she said. It is showing huge amounts of caution in a very short period of time. See, here's the thing, guys. So if we've had all these lockdowns and now we don't have a lockdown, but people are acting like adults and are minimizing their risk, maybe we could have done that at the beginning, like certain other countries. Maybe our paternalistic parents here running us, the politicians and bureaucrats, realize we're not toddlers anymore. Maybe what's our emotional maturity of an Australian citizen, Australian pleb? Are we 8-year-olds, maybe 9-year-olds, maybe 10? Ms. Timbrell said there were precedents in other countries with a similar experience, but the magnitude of Australia's decline while not in lockdown was surprising. Yeah, because Omicron, the numbers that we're getting are actually higher. They're real numbers that we're seeing now. For the first time in the pandemic, people in my street have got Omicron. I've got family members that have got Omicron here in Queensland. I've got friends that have caught it. Looking forward, the length of the Omicron disruption is the biggest question, and one Ms. Timbrell noted was not one for an economist. But it is not all bad news. There are some things we know. When the outbreak goes away, the spending malaise also goes away, she said. Once people are happy to go out and about, they spend up. As long as it doesn't disrupt a lot of people's income in a long-term way, we should see a quick bounce back as soon as the actual health side of it gets under control. So there we go, everyone. Spending has plummeted for the virtual lockdown. Let's have a look here at a tweet from Peter Martin, where he's looking at some of this. So, national ANZ observed weekly spending for the week to the 5th of January is at its lowest level since the Delta lockdowns. Caution about being in public places is being compounded by staff shortages to stifle spending across dining, rent, retail and travel. Spending in Sydney and Melbourne is now near levels typical of lockdown conditions. Indeed, total ANZ observed spending in Sydney is at its lowest point since COVID began. In Melbourne specifically and Victoria overall, spending is not as low as during Delta lockdowns, and it recovered faster after Delta lockdowns than Sydney, which seems to have been hit harder by interstate travel rules throughout the last year. ANZ observed spending has also fallen sharply in Queensland, South Australia and Western Australia since the Christmas trading period, with spending in all states a little lower than 2021's out-of-lockdown levels. Dining spending in Queensland and Western Australia resembles previous lockdown conditions, while non-food retail spending outside of Victoria and New South Wales is closer to out-of-lockdown times in 2021. And there you go, guys. You can just see it crashing there. So let's have a bit of a talk about this. So this is definitely going to impact retailers and people running restaurants and cafes and businesses. We'll have to see how long this lasts. The peak is predicted to happen, hopefully this month. We'll have to see, guys. What do you reckon? Have you gone out spending and eating in cafes? Has Omicron impacted your decisions, or are you just cheap? Anyway, take care. I'll see you next time. And I want to point you to this last video I did about a Bitcoin.com crash. Is that we're going to see soon? Well, take care, guys. And I'll see you all in the next episode of Heise Says. Bye for now. Good coffee.